Kevin Kalaher, Cal, K-A-L, is known around the world as the cartoonist for The Economist. He is an ambassador, a global ambassador for cartooning, and every one of us who have been privileged to know him over the years regards him as an absolutely delightful person. He's a very animated and energetic and theatrical presenter and performer, and you're in for a treat here. He is off and on the cartoonist for the Baltimore Sun. They're currently on. It's a tough marriage, and he's won lots of prizes and awards, and his stuff has appeared everywhere. The Berryman, the Overseas Press Club, and the Thomas Nast Prize. So, Kevin.
Thanks, Joel. No, I got one here. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Watch it. Hello, everybody. Hi, good to see you all. And I have to say, it really is a great honor and privilege to be the cleanup batter for this illustrious group that we've had entertain us for the day. It's really been impressive for me to hear many of my colleagues speak. I've learned an awful lot, and I hope you guys will learn a little bit about what's been going on in my brain for the past 35 years, as I'm going to talk a little bit about my pursuit of the perfect caricature. It's been something actually of great interest to me, this whole notion of caricature, and I think I'm going to show you some slides, and I thought that it might be important to start with my very early work. I think it's a good place to kind of get to know each other. So I have my cartoon here from first grade that my mom saved of Abraham Lincoln, which I think is the first caricature I can remember doing. And one of the things about this is that, at this age, we all know that everybody is drawing, right? Everyone who's 7 years old is drawing. But somehow cartoonists, when they're 47, are still drawing, when most of the other people have kind of peeled off. And it's partly because we can see the world and distill it down to its very simple essence, is what the same thing that happens with young kids. But so from the first Abraham Lincoln, I later was trying to learn how to do caricature. It seemed something of great interest to me. The first thing I remember seeing a great caricature was the little busts created by Honore Daumier, the great 19th century Frenchman, and thinking, wow, those are so cool. I'd love to be able to do that. And so where do you go to school to become a caricaturist, right? There is no school for caricature. So I would just go out and try to do it. And actually, the first caricature I can remember drawing was a few years after the one that you saw earlier. I think it was in 5th grade. It was in music class at St. Thomas the Apostle School in Norwalk, Connecticut. And I had a nun who would sing in class, and she would sing with her eyes closed during class. So one day I decided, I was going to capture her because she looked so funny, and she had these kind of little squinty eyes, and a little bulbous nose sticking out like this, curly hair that was just beaming out from underneath the habit that was going down like this, and then she had a mouth the size of a battleship, okay? And she was crooning away there, like this, right? And I thought it was okay, but the thing that was interesting to me is the girl sitting next to me liked it. And she grabbed and had a bit of a giggle, and she passed it around to the boy, and soon it was circulating around the classroom. And in minutes, I was a star. Okay? You were a hit. The adulation from your peers at that age was incredible until the nun saw the cartoon. And then she did something that, you wouldn't see happen so much today. She took me by the ear down to the boys' room and made me take a bite out of a bar soap. And she said, don't you ever draw another cartoon like that again. And I've been doing them ever since. Ever since. And actually, she turned out to be one of the best teachers I've ever had in the realm of political cartooning. Because what she taught me was, first, cartoons are immediate. They get people's attention in the matter of seconds. Second, amongst those who are under the thumb of authority, under the thumb of dictatorships, this is a magnificent way of bringing the powerful down a notch. And then you get this incredible support from all those people for what you do. But then those on the sharp end of your pen do not respond in the same way. And I've seen that happen over and over again. And it taught me a bit about the power of caricature. So later, when I was in college and just out of college, I would start drawing caricatures on the street. When I first started, I was a really bad artist. In fact, I would not charge for my caricatures. I would set up free caricatures and people would sit down. And of course, all the wrong people would sit down. They would want to proselytize me and that sort of thing. But later, when I was doing my caricatures, I was also a terrible businessman. Because to do this properly, you need to crank something out in about 5 minutes. I was taking 45 minutes because I wanted to create something that really felt like the person. It looked like it had something else. And I thought I was kind of crazy until I heard of this fabulous quote by Annibale Carracci, the Italian Renaissance painter, who once said, "A good caricature is more true to life than reality itself." And so when I heard that, I said, wow, that's exactly what I should try to do. So I would draw, and I was drawing in London, I was drawing on the streets in Germany, I was traveling around, and the whole time, hundreds of faces were passing in front of me. And during that time, you start to learn about the structure of the faces, all the details of the ears and the nose and all that sort of stuff, and you learn a kind of formulation in this art of caricature. But you also learn something else. Drawing a caricature is a very intimate thing. We all imagine, we all are completely aware of the foibles of our own faces. And if somebody's sitting down there and their job is to take your face, pull it apart, and reassemble it under their control, well, you get a little nervous when that's they're dealing with your visage. So, I realized in those days when I'm sitting down with people, you have to be kind of very gentle and generous with them. And that seems appropriate when you're doing that type of caricature. However, later, when I got my first job with The Economist, and you started now applying the skills of caricature to politicians, then the idea of what happened in 5th grade resurrected its head. You are now dealing with powerful people, and the role of caricature took on a completely different meaning. And I was fortunate that during this time, in my early years with The Economist, I was experimenting with caricature. You could not only deal with faces, but now you could put them in ridiculous situations. And you could dress them up, all the various different politicians you were dealing with. You can put men in women's clothing, which is a very popular thing to do in British humor. And then also maybe not have any clothes at all in certain cases. This is Margaret Thatcher. And so the thing is that all this time, you're realizing that caricatures now, like a good face, can tell a story. And the thing that I was also learning about drawing these caricatures, well, let me just stop for a second. And this caricature was a great example of a story being told. The Economist ran this on the cover after Katrina. And the thing about this cartoon was it was telling the story not just of Katrina that was kind of blowing the nation apart, but is also exposing the problems within the Bush administration. And this is the only cover they've ever run that didn't have a caption on it, that the picture told the whole story. So I was beginning to realize, seeing that there was a power that caricatures could do to pull people in to tell stories. So as I became now a political cartoonist, a columnist, using amongst my toolkit caricatures, I was realizing, were these really handy things because it was a way to pull people's attention into the political cartoon. And what they did was, look, we all have got faces, and from the minute we're born, we're looking at faces very carefully. Our eyes are scanners, and our brains are hard drives, and we're always assessing people to read their faces, whether they like them, what I like, are they dangerous, are they friendly? Where our brains have been doing this from the moment we're born to the minute we die. And so faces in cartoons, if they're managed properly, can be great ways to pull people's minds and eyes into your drawing. In fact, there's a great 19th century British philosopher, Mary Poppins, who said a spoonful of sugar helps a medicine go down. A good caricature can act as a tool to bring people into your cartoon, let them reside for a few seconds longer maybe than previously thought, and then at the same time allows you to deliver the message that the point of your political cartoon is. So I started to look to other cartoonists and caricaturists in the past, as we all do. Because there's no schools for what we do, we learn from our peers, and we also learn from those who came from before us. One of my favorites is Daumier, as I told you before. The thing about Daumier, which I think is cool, is you look at those people that he is caricaturing. You don't know who these people are, but you know they look exactly like that. And then more recently, of course, we have a lot of great caricaturists coming. I think in the past 25 years has been a real blossoming of caricatures in media. One of the greats, of course, David Levine, who used very detailed cross-hatching in his work. Al Hirschfeld, fantastic, but he was more flowing, gentle lines in his work. And then you have other simple people like David Cowles, who actually introduces color in a fantastic way to help tell stories about faces. Another person great in color is Philip Burke, and also one of my more favorite recent, more hyper-realistic school of caricature, which has become very popular recently, is Paul Moyse of Great Britain. He does some great work. But all the time, there's actually so many different voices in caricature. Just as there are many different types of comedians, there are two that way in caricature. And this is David O'Keefe in Florida. But it shows that caricature can take many different forms. And of course, I'm missing out many of the great names in caricature. And also, we have seen today, in so many of the slideshows, so many fantastic caricatures done by many of the people in this room. So, as I started to become more familiar with practitioners, other practitioners of caricature, and started to explore the art in my own mind, I also realized that as I was watching politicians, I could see them grow and change during their course of time in office, and I found that my caricatures were growing and changing at the same time. So, say H.W. Bush, when he first came into office, may look like this, but 4 years later, he was looking like this. And we all kind of see this happening, but it was also part of the adventure about caricature. It's a living thing. You never stop and keep the same caricature all the time. It will grow and change as the faces change of the people you're drawing. Another example we all know, of course, Barack Obama 4 years ago. He looked like this, 10,000-watt smile. He was nice and happy, and now he looks more like this, where the face and the drawn and the gravitas and gravity both working together to pay a toll on his face. Now, we all remember, of course, Ross Perot, which this is what he looked like, during the election. If he got elected, can you imagine how distorted that would have been at the end of 4 years? It would have been out of control. So elections are great times for being caricatures, because how many in this room get phone calls, radio interviews, or even just friends asking you during an election season, how will you draw so-and-so? Who is your favorite to draw? Blah, blah, blah. That type of thing. And why is because people are interested in how you are going to take on those powerful people. And I also believe, particularly this year in the Republican campaigns, in the early part of the primaries, the cartoonists had a great deal of helping the populace understand who these crazy, kooky people are, and through our cartoons and caricatures help maybe get rid of some of the idiots that leaving us only with Mitt Romney. So I think that during campaigns is especially a good time to be a caricaturist. So over time, you get to draw all sorts of people in caricature. You get to draw the people involved, and of course. There's people who aren't often caricatured because the roles are not publicly known. I think like Harry Reid, most people in the country wouldn't know what he looked like if he walked into the room. But as a cartoonist, it's important that we cover these people. So when it comes to characters, so we've been dealing with faces, but then you also realize one of the great tools of the political cartoonist, and one of the things that amplifies the power of caricature, is drop a caricature into an animal's body. What a way to diminish and humiliate a politician than to turn them into an animal. And it's a trick, of course, we've been doing for many years. Thomas Nast did it there. This is a great story. Many of you know it, but I'll just tell it briefly, about a cartoonist in Pennsylvania who was drawing a politician named Pennypacker, constantly drawing him as a parrot. When Pennypacker became governor, he passed an anti-cartoon law that said you cannot draw politicians as birds, insects, fish, or any other such living things. And the cartoonist on the next day after this ran on the front page, of the Philadelphia North American. He drew the politicians as a dead tree, as an old Dutch Stein, small potato, and so on. Just thumbing their nose at the laws, at the law there. The law was thrown out, by the way. The cartoonist wasn't prosecuted. However, it was one of maybe 5 similar laws passed in the United States at that time, anti-cartoon laws. So we can show us how the power of cartoons and how politicians respond. But here's another current example, I think, of a really great example of the way a caricature can work in a contemporary part. This is done by Joel Pett, former governor, right, Wallace Wilkinson of Kentucky, who, here's just an example of him. He's, of course, got the Kentucky hat, kind of Napoleon-esque character. But Joel Pett, in time, had turned him into a weasel and constantly drew him as a weasel. Can you imagine the governor being drawn as a weasel the whole time? Got a huge amount of response. And he, in fact, Joel got so into it that he made a Halloween costume out of it. That's Joel Pett inside there into the Halloween. He said he had a pig outfit in his room. No, this is what he's got in his room. Okay? But it also tells 2 different stories come out of this. First, you remember Joel's caricature is quite simple. His fabulous Mitch McConnell that we saw here earlier, very simple, incredibly effective. Yeah, then you look at a David Levine, incredibly complicated, very effective. There's no rule as to what type of caricature is going to work best. There's all different kinds that are very interesting and very effective. And so as I look around our group, there's many talented people who find their own way. And even around this stage, you can see many examples of different styles that are all very effective. I had my own interface. Oops, thank you, Governor. I had a interface with the governor of Maryland, who also gave me a hard time. He used to carry my cartoons around in his pocket and wave them at press conferences and send me obscene letters and so on. And so he was really interesting to draw until one day, 1 week before he was ready to leave office, he wrote me a letter, and it said, "Dear Cal, please send me the cartoon that appeared in the Baltimore Sun last week." And I'm reading this thing, and I'm thinking, what? Was it bygones be bygones? You're feeling nostalgic or something? Then I read on. It said, "As you want money for these depressing monstrosities, I herein attach the value that I put upon your cartoon." He taped a penny to the letter and wrote "overpaid" on the top of it. So now that cartoon, that letter now hangs in my office as a diploma from the governor, as a perfect gift from the governor. So the idea that locally the caricatures have a lot more power because nobody else is making fun of these guys. And if you attack their faces, they respond really fast. So more recently, I've been also exploring the nature of caricature and what would it be like to take things into 3D and take things and make them move. And I had the opportunity, 4 or 5 years ago, to build some 3D models of major characters. And about 4 years ago, during the election cycle, I did a nationwide tour with Second City, the improv comedy troupe. And as part of the tour, we would do what I would call a live caricature show. It would work like this. I would be backstage wearing a motion capture suit. In front here, a representative from Second City would be introducing to the audience that we had a special guest coming in, and on the screen, we would have, say, George Bush would appear live, and I would be backstage, and as I moved, of course, he would move. I would also be wearing 2 microphones. One microphone would go into a computer, so that as I spoke as George Bush, then the computer would crunch my words and make the animated figure's mouth move. However, the mouth would take about 2 seconds between the time I spoke and the mouth would move. So the second microphone I was wearing was into the house sound system. That was put on a delay for 2 seconds so that everybody in the audience, when I spoke and his mouth would move, they would hear that at the same time. And we would do a live press conference with George Bush. So we also did these things where we had John McCain, and we had a debate between these 2 guys, John McCain and Barack Obama, and we would ask them questions live. In fact, I'm going to ask a question right now of Senator John McCain. Now, Senator McCain, you had Sarah Palin was your vice president. No, back in the time, did you really think she was qualified to be president?
Listen, my friends, Sarah Palin is qualified to be president. She has ridden caribou to hunt polar bears with bazookas. She has caught Chinook salmon blindfolded with her teeth. No community organizer in Chicago has ever done that. Right?
All right, well, give it up for John McCain. Give it up for Senator. Thank you very much, Senator. Thank you very much. It's really great for you to be here. So, now I just want to kind of pause for a moment now to reflect upon all these experiences I had with caricature. So I started off doing simple things because they were kind of fun, they were kind of compelling. Then I got confronted with the power of that a cartoon and caricature can do. And then I was fortunate enough to be able to follow it up and create a career where I actually could earn money doing this sort of thing. But then I started to learn how difficult it was for people in other countries to do what I could do so comfortably here. For a short time, I was a president of the CRN International, which you're going to be seeing the award ceremony tonight. And I learned of amazing stories of cartoonists around the world who would be jailed and tortured and certainly arrested. Their crime is just drawing their own head of state. And that in over 3/4 of the world today, we often forget, we couldn't even have this meeting, that I would be arrested and you guys would disappear, never to be seen again maybe, because of the type of things we're seeing up here. And really in the history of mankind, there's been only a short window where freedom of expression has been allowed. And I like to tell people that you can measure the maturity of a democracy by the amount of satire it can endure. And the main component of that is what you can do with caricature, how much you can take a politician's face and pull it apart. So with that, I would like to just leave with this one last notion. The search for the perfect caricature. So, I thought about all these different types, all the different styles, and all the different ways you could do caricature. And I've done some 3D. I've done some very serious cartoons. I've done funny cartoons. I've done cartoons that were quite simple, cartoonish, and some very much like portraiture. But I don't think, actually, I've learned that there's no such thing as a perfect caricature. The only thing is a perfect attempt at trying to get your caricatures across. I want to thank you guys very much. And it's been a pleasure being here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.